So let's become aware of our breathing as we begin our meditation. With every exhalation, just letting go of any thoughts of the past or of the future, entering more deeply into this present moment. Relaxing into this sacred space, this sanctuary that is a manifestation of the inner sanctuary, where we dwell always in harmony, in peace, in unity, in freedom, in radiant health, in gratitude. And we know that this sacred sanctuary in the outer world is a manifestation of our yearning to awaken to the truth, shining always in our heart. That what we are is infinite and eternal consciousness that was never born and will never die. And we give thanks for all of the teachers in our life and for all of the teachings that help to turn our minds away from the delusion of separateness to the truth of the infinite interconnectedness of all life. We give thanks for this community and for all of our loved ones, for the whole web of life on earth, for all of the animals, celebrating their lives in the oceans, in the skies, all around us, the whole creation, magnificent beauty. And we give thanks knowing that the light that shines at the heart of the universe shines right now in our heart, bringing every dimension of our life into harmony, into alignment with our living purpose for this lifetime, bringing every function and every cell into peace, bringing every aspect of our life into alignment. With the divine purpose. And so now we just allow our mind to Relax into this moment and allow the music to open an inner doorway to connect more deeply with the unique ministry and mission and purpose for this lifetime. May all beings be happy and at peace. May all beings be free. May we all realize the original brightness of our minds and hearts. May we continue to work together to build a more enlightened society, a world that cares for everyone, for all expressions of life. A world that reflects the inner Christ, truth shining in our heart through the power and presence of the infinite spirit of love. We give thanks, knowing this is so, and so it is.
Let's conclude our time of meditation by reciting the Lord's Prayer together. Can we put that up on the screen? We all know it. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from error. For the kingdom and the power and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen.
I'd like to thank you all for joining together in the meditation and play a short piece of original piano music now. This will be an improvisation on a piece called Benediction of Light. So we can just take this opportunity to shine from our heart a benediction or a blessing out into our community, into our world, to all of our loved ones, to those places where there may be conflict or harm, disease, and so forth, just sending our love. Dedicating this to the healing of all of our relations. Enjoy. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be with you this morning, and I'd like to just give thanks for the awakening that's happening on planet Earth of human consciousness. It's really important, I think, to be part of a spiritual community where we're connecting with the ancient wisdom teachings and doing the best we can to bring that into a living reality in our world today, because there's so many challenges that we're facing as a human family right now. Madeline and I think let's give a hand to Madeline. She's always a big part of the whole thing here, and she, her art is very, I think, articulate as well. Her paintings, but the thing, we've been able, really blessed, I think, to go to Unity churches now for many, many years. I think, I don't know how long now, over 40 years we've been traveling to Unity churches and giving talks and workshops and so forth. And I think Unity is one of the healthiest movements on the earth, in the sense that it's a manifestation of a striving to be inclusive, right? There's a sense of inclusivity, that we honor all the different traditions, the different spiritual traditions. And I remember when I was a kid growing up in Massachusetts, we went to this church, and the basic idea was, well, we have the one right teaching, and if you just believe our creed, then you'll go to our heaven. It's really just specially for us, and that kind of thing. It's so beautiful, I think, to have this sense of inclusivity, that we honor the wisdom teachings of the different traditions. And we recognize that it's up to each one of us as an individual, actually, to bring forth that which is within us for the benefit of others, and to awaken really through our own efforts. There's a great saying that is attributed to Charles Fillmore. He always said that each one of us should go straight to headquarters, right? We don't need an intermediary. We can do it ourselves. Of course, that was easy for him. What he meant by that was, I'll just ask Myrtle. she was right there. But I think the beauty of it is that we can connect with the sacred feminine dimension of consciousness within ourselves, which I refer to in my book, The World Peace Diet, as Sophia. Sophia is the ancient Greek word that does mean wisdom. And I think it refers to, or it symbolizes, an inner wisdom that's shining in all of us. It's feminine in the sense that even though whether we're a man or a woman, the feminine dimension is that capacity that can be receptive to a higher knowing, that we can open to a higher knowing, which we call intuition, or the inner guidance system that we have. And one of the things that I think is the most important, really, that we can do in our life is to take time every day to do the best we can to quiet our mind and connect with the inner silence, so that we can hear and connect with, maybe it's a sense of hearing or a sense of seeing or feeling the intuitive voice or the intuitive guidance system, because that's really the key, I think, to a spiritual life. If we're not being guided by our intuition in our life, then what are we being guided by? Right? Think about it. What are we being guided? If I'm not being guided by my intuition, I'm being guided essentially by the cultural program. Right? I mean, it came through my parents, through my teachers, through my ministers, not the Unity ministers, but the other ministers. Now, through the Walmart ads, through whatever it is. We're bombarded with messages from the time we're born. As soon as we're born, we're bombarded with messages. We're like little sponges soaking everything up. And we learn their language and their attitudes and their everything. And so that's what we become, in a sense, a programmed or conditioned consciousness, repeating what we've been told. So we go to church every day, but spirituality does not start until intuition starts bursting forth and we start being guided by something else other than the cultural program. Because the cultural program has some good things, but it also has a lot of toxins, a lot of competitiveness and fear and separation and so forth. And so we're here, I think, not merely to replicate our cultural program. We do that somewhat. We pass it on from generation to generation, but to improve it, right? To somehow transform within ourselves the cultural program into something founded on loving kindness, compassion, creativity, abundance, and beauty. and really on the truth that what we are is interconnected, that we're like fingers on a hand. And beyond that, really, what we are is not material, that we're not a physical thing, an object that was born and will die. This is what we're told. The cultural program teaches us that we're an object, that this is it, like this body, right? I mean, don't believe it. When we realize we're not this body, that what we are is what makes this body possible, then we can become a healer of ourselves and those around us. But that does not going to happen unless it's an authentic realization of this. And that doesn't happen unless we quiet our mind. Because how many of you have a meditation practice that you do sometime? Good. I think it's a regular practice is very helpful, because when in meditation, we can begin to watch and become a witness of our mind, of our consciousness, and become aware of our attention and what we're paying attention to. And what we'll find out is that our mind is continually nonstop whirling around and around a center, which is me. Me, what I like, what I don't like, what I'm going to do, what I don't want to do, what I hope they do, what I hope they don't do. I wish they wouldn't have done, but if they would have done that, then they would have done, it's all about this, me, 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 me. It's inescapable. And that, in the Buddhist tradition, is called samsara. Samsara is suffering that never ends. It really is. If we're convinced that I'm a separate self, essentially separate from the world and those around me, that I'm continually, in the Buddhist tradition, they call it the three poisons. The essential poison is ignorance, which is this delusion that I'm a fundamentally separate self, this object, this thing. And then out of that come the other two poisons, which is I want to get what I want, and I want to keep away what I don't want. So we're in this conflict with the world around us. We're trying to, if everybody's in that same thing, right? We're all thinking the same thing. We were all trying to get what we want and keep away what we don't want. Then we find ourselves manipulating each other to get and using each other as instruments. Suffering that never ends. And it goes on lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, right? Until we wake up out of this, essentially. This is the ancient wisdom tradition and all the traditions. And the whole idea is that this precious human incarnation that we have is an opportunity, if we can actually be exposed to these teachings, that's already something to be grateful for. And then to have the opportunity to practice. I love unity. Unity is the church of practical Christianity. Practical, we can practice this. It's not the church of theoretical Christianity. We can be theoretically, we can say, I'm very loving, I'm very kind. It's like, well, okay, but what are you eating? How are you living your life? How do we actually live? That's really the beautiful thing, is that we have the opportunity to practice and to learn and to question all the official narratives, not only that we read in the newspapers, but we hear in our own minds. Where did those come from? And when we do that, we begin to create space for wisdom that's always within us to come forth. I think that's the beautiful thing. So these three poisons that I mentioned, they're present, but we can be free of those, and we can actually live our life as a manifestation of kindness, of joy, of gratitude, of freedom, as we begin to realize we're not this thing. In the Buddhist tradition, I have a lot of background in that. I was a Zen Buddhist monk, actually, in Korea back in the 1980s. And I remember reading about how in the early history of Buddhism, they never had a statue like of the Buddha. That was 500 years went by before it finally got to Greece, and they said, we got to have a statue of this guy. They never had that idea, like make a statue out of somebody. But anyway, before that, the symbol of Buddhism was a footprint, and that's very important. Like if you're on at the beach and you're walking along and you see a footprint in the sand, you don't go up to the footprint and say, well, good morning, George. How are you today? Right? The footprint is not the being that made the footprint. Right? The footprint is just a manifestation. So right now, this is a footprint waving. You can't see the being, right? We see the footprints. But when we connect with the being that's eternal, that makes this possible, and then we're free. We realize what we are is essentially undamageable by whatever happens down here. And we begin to see that in others. When we see the eternal being in others, we become healers. We draw forth the best in other people because we see the eternal, beautiful, loving presence that they are when we see that in ourselves. And I think this ancient wisdom comes through unity very clearly. And it's it's a tremendous gift that we have to bring to our society, especially right now. In my own case, just briefly, when I was a kid, I grew up in Concord, Massachusetts, back in the 1950s, and I remember it was an interesting place because there were these revolutions, right? There was the first one in the 1700s, the 1775. Remember that the poem, "Hardly a man is now alive that remembers the famous day and year of the midnight ride of Paul Revere." You know, that whole Revolutionary War. You know, my father, every April 19th, which is Patriots Day, we would reenact the battle at the Old North Bridge. My father would get his gun off the wall, dress up in a Minuteman outfit. You know, send the British back to Boston and celebrate the revolution. You know, the basic idea is it's a good idea. You know, if you have an intolerable tyranny, we shouldn't tolerate it. But the neat thing is that about maybe almost 100 years later, there was this other revolution, the Transcendentalists, Emerson and Thoreau. So I learned to swim in Walden Pond. I went to Alcott School, Thoreau School, born in Emerson Hospital. But these people were bringing, for the first time, teachings from Asia into North America. Thoreau had the largest library of books on Taoism and Buddhism and Vedanta and these teachings that really actually inspired a lot of the Fillmores and so forth. The teaching, for example, that God is equally female as male, or the idea that God is mind, or the idea that God is this eternal principle from the Taoist tradition. These traditions from the Buddhists and Hindu and so forth. But these are part of our human heritage, this ability to expand our understanding of what is the deeper truth. And so I remember when I got to college in Maine in the early 70s, I started really reading this and studying, and there was one book that kind of synthesized it very well. It was an old book called Cosmic Consciousness, written by Richard Buck. And he basically, in the 1890s, he basically said that most people live in a state of what he called self-consciousness, right? Like I talked about, we kind of care about ourselves and those around us, and we do our best. But he said certain people had made a quantum leap, basically. They had attained what he called cosmic consciousness. People like Jesus and the Buddha and a lot of great sages and saints, both men and women, he kind of went through it historically, had attained this higher level of consciousness where they lost the fear of death. They lost this kind of narrow, sort of self-centered way of living and just lived to be a blessing in the world. And the point he made was that it is the destiny of all human beings to attain cosmic consciousness. That's our purpose. Our purpose isn't to try to impress people or attain things or accumulate. It's to attain a higher level of consciousness. That's our purpose. And so I remember reading this and thinking, yeah, that's it. What am I doing here? It's kind of like Joseph Campbell said, a midlife crisis is when you're climbing a ladder and you get pretty high up there, and then you realize your ladder's against the wrong wall. Like, why am I going up here? Why don't I even want to be up here? It hit me kind of early. I'm like, why am I climbing? So I remember going back home on spring break and telling my father, Dad, we're here to attain cosmic consciousness. Don't you know? And he said, is that what they're teaching you up there? I said, well, not really. I'm learning that on my own. Well, I'm paying a lot of money for this. How's that going to help you get ahead in the world? But anyway, my younger brother, Ed, to my delight, when I talked to him about this, he was totally in. He said, yeah, that's it. So we thought, as soon as I graduated from Colby, we thought, we have to try to attain cosmic consciousness. The question was, well, then what do you do? Like, what do we do now? And we thought about it, and then it hit us. We knew exactly what to do. It's so obvious. It was 1975. If you want to attain cosmic consciousness, go to California. Easy. So we did. I remember we walked down the driveway, and we were just, young, and I had my little backpack. We had some fresh baked cookies from my mother. Our parents gave us their blessings. That my father said, "Well, every man must march to the beat of the drum that he hears," and quoted Thoreau. And so we headed off, and we walked to California. And we walked for quite a few weeks, and we got as far as Buffalo. And Telling you, it was October. It was like this. It was freezing. I thought, we just better head south. So we actually took a left turn, and we walked for quite a few months down through upstate New York into Pennsylvania, across Pennsylvania into West Virginia. We hit the Bible Belt in West Virginia. I didn't know what that meant, but I found out very quickly. That means they try to save you every night. And we walked down through West Virginia through Appalachia, into Kentucky, eastern Kentucky, into Tennessee. We had no money, zero, and we were just walking, and so it was quite an adventure. We had lots of really amazing adventures, and we found really that as Jesus said is true, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and everything shall be added unto you. We never went hungry. By some miracle, every day something would happen. We'd get some food somehow, and we would walk, and we were just walking and meditating. We were doing this practice that we had read about by Ramana Maharshi in India. He said, just do the self-inquiry. Ask, who am I? Who am I? I was doing that thousands of times a day. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Trying to go deeper and realize I'm not just this thing. And we eventually reached a place in Tennessee called The Farm. And The Farm in 1975 was the largest hippie commune in the world, and they were all from California. So we felt like we lived there for a little while, and they were all vegetarian. I became a vegetarian at that point. And then a little later, vegan. And I went and then kept walking past that actually to believe it or not, there was a Zen center in northern Alabama in Huntsville. And so we ended up there, and then eventually I ended up in Tibetan Buddhist and Zen centers in California, and then shaved my head, became a Zen Buddhist monk in Korea, and eventually came back and decided to live in this world instead of in the monastery, and got a PhD at Berkeley and taught college for quite a few years, and met Madeline in Switzerland. Smartest thing I ever did was marrying Madeline. And then we discovered unity actually way back in the 70s in Atlanta, when I was living in a meditation center in Atlanta during that time, and realized that unity is amazing. Unity really has the gold in there, the ancient wisdom, and it's a do-it-yourself kit, right? I mean, we bring it to each other. So after teaching college for quite a few years, I decided to leave that and we lived in an RV for 17 years, full time, just going to Unity churches every single Sunday. Been to, many hundreds of churches all over all 50 states except for North Dakota. There isn't one there, but when they get one, we'll be in over 50 countries, actually, not Unity, but in general. We've been giving lectures. So it's been an amazing life, I have to say. I'm so grateful for the Unity teachings and for the opportunity to connect with what is called the Dharma. So I'd just like to close with this basic idea that, as I've been saying, it's really up to us as individuals to make the effort to connect with our inner guidance system, our intuition, the sacred feminine dimension. And when we do that, we can then create communities that help bring this teaching to other people, because that's the most important thing. There's in the Buddhist tradition, there's the three jewels. Have you heard of this? The three jewels. The three jewels are the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The Buddha is the inner wisdom that shines always in our heart. In Unity, we would call that the inner Christ. It's the eternal essence of our true nature. The Dharma is the teachings, right? That help us to awaken our inner Christ, the inner true nature. Very precious, the teachings, so precious. And the third is the Sangha, which is the community of people who are interested in awakening the inner truth and spreading the teaching and living these teachings and bringing these into our community, into the larger community. And the Buddha said something very interesting. He said, without the Sangha, the community, there will be no Buddha and no Dharma. So the Sangha, what you're doing by doing the inner work on your own, in silence and in daily life and in your relationships and your careers, and doing the study of the scriptures and the teachings, and to live that, creates the foundation of a consciousness that's more awake and more aware. That's no longer being pushed around by conditioning. You're setting yourself up as a beacon, as a light in the world, and then coming together in a community like this, where we propagate the teachings, we actually practice them, we share them, we deepen our understanding. Then we can go forth and share it with other people. To come to this earth, we're only here for a few short decades, guaranteed eat a lot of sprouts, maybe you'll get 10 decades, 10 or 11 decades. But basically, every day is a precious opportunity. And to be part of a Sangha, to be part of a community that's sharing these teachings, and to support that community is a very high calling. So I want to thank all of you. I know if you found your way here, you're already on the path of awakening your intuition, your inner wisdom, awakening the heart of compassion and kindness. And it was so great, actually, that today the daily word was world peace. Yeah, I thought, wow, that's really synchronistic, because my book, of course, is called The World Peace Diet, and it's been translated into 18 languages. We've traveled all over the world. I mean, really, over 50 countries in Asia, Africa, all over Europe, the Middle East, and North and South America, just sharing the idea that we can create a world of peace and harmony by living a life of respect and kindness to all living beings. And when we do that, we begin to create a positive future for all of us. So I want to thank you all for your efforts. Go forth and multiply the message. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Will. Great message. Now we move into our celebration of abundance, our opportunity to give back from our financial abundance. Let's begin by reading the Unity of Jupiter Prosperity Blessing together. It's up on the monitors. In a universe overflowing with the abundance of good, we acknowledge God as the source of all our blessings. We affirm our receptivity and acceptance of this good from every direction, known and unknown, expected and unexpected. Our abundant good comes to us now. Thank you, God, and so it is. There are many ways to give. You can drop your gift off in the baskets that'll be going around. They're not really baskets, but whatever. You can give digitally through the Unity of Jupiter website, and we have the Unity QR code and the PayPal QR code, both of which are available on laminated signs posted throughout the church. You can also text your donation to 561-581-1119. You can also give by debit or credit card in our office, which is located right off the sanctuary. Most of these options can be set up for automatic recurring giving. Now, to keep our time of giving sacred, I would like you to now take your gift in your hands and bless it. You are planting the seeds to your own prosperity and giving back to God from the abundance that has already been provided for you. Breathe life into your gift and thank God that you have this gift to give. And now affirm with me the offertory blessing. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And now here's some more music from Dr. Will.
Great, thank you. I'll just play a short piece of music. This is called Dance for the Arctic Moon, and it's dedicated to celebrating the sacred feminine dimension. Enjoy.